Session of the day, it's South Stories, Global Eyes, what English publishers seek today. I would love to welcome Mukharjee, literary curator bridging South Indian voices with global platforms, and Rinita Banerjee, editor dedicated to amplifying diverse, authentic stories. In this session, we decode what makes South Indian stories resonate worldwide. Please welcome our panelists.
Hello, thank you everyone for coming here today. It's the middle of the afternoon. This is going to be a short session where Rinita and I are going to talk about our experiences as editors who have worked on literature from South India from the perspective of, the Delhi publisher. So we want to bring our perspectives to you, but we also want to hear from you, which is the main point of this session, is that we want for you guys to ask us questions about problems that you all are facing, ideas that you all have about how we can improve our work better, and what kind of stories you think should come from the southern part of India into a national forum for discussion. I will introduce myself, and then Rinita can introduce herself. I am an editor with Penguin Random House. I have been with Penguin for about 3.5, 4 years. Before that, I was working in other publishing houses like Oxford and Orient Black Swan. A large part of my work is translations. I am a curator of the translations list for Penguin India. I am the editor of Heartlamp. We just published it. We're very excited about it. I do about 10 translations every year. And I try to have as much representation as possible in those 10 books that I do every year. I also do the Penguin Classics list, which also includes translations in its own way. And I handle a very small list of fiction in general fiction, literary fiction for Penguin. The large part of my work is translations. And I have been working sort of ground level. I mean, I had to hit the ground running when I joined Penguin, because while there were a lot of translations happening, people were not taking it seriously. And then in 2022, India won the first Booker Prize, which was for a Hindi novel in translation called Tomb of Sand. And once that win happened, we sort of put ourselves out there on a global platform, and it changed the narrative of translations for me as an editor, for translators, and for authors. And I think since then, it's been a great journey where I've learned every day. I learn about economies, I learn about cultural issues, I learn about stories. And that's been my journey. I'm going to ask Rinita to talk a little about hers.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being present at today's session. It's such a lovely weather. Thankfully, the sun's gone. I'm currently a senior editor in the literary division at HarperCollins India. I've been here since 2018. Primarily edit and have started to acquire and commission books in the translation space, literary translation. My publishing journey started quite a while ago with Orient Black Swan, been with Rupa. I've been with the Algonquin Books of Chapel Hill, interned there in the US. So having worked across organizations and countries, it's been a very, very fruitful experience, I would say, trying to see how publishing works, how translations are looked at, and more importantly, how stories kind of work, cutting across class, caste, all sorts of divisive categories, I would say. On the Banks of the Pampa is a book that I acquired and I edited. It's a book by Volga and has been translated by Purnima Tamireddy. And a story, and I'm talking about this specifically because, Mouthushi mentioned Heartlamp. That's a very different set of stories, a very different milieu. This particular book, it's a reimagining of a tale from the Ramayana. It's a reimagining. So from mythologies to stories that resonate directly with our everyday life, I think publishers seek translations of works, of stories that resonate with us as people. I think Mouthushi will agree when I say that. Um, it is a vast canvas. And while I was on my way to this particular session today, I was thinking of what should I say? What do publishers actually seek? It's a difficult question because it's just so much. But at the end of the day, I think what matters are the stories that are being told. You know, how they resonate with the times that we live in, how they resonate with the people that we are constantly engaging with, how they are unique, but at the same time, I think universal in their appeal. That is something I believe that as editors, as curators, we are constantly looking for. And of course, voices. Voices that are not only interesting, voices that are not only, like I said, cutting through the divides, voices that are bringing in perspectives about this particular society that we are engaging in and on a constant basis, in a very unique way, in a very singular manner, but also in a very accessible manner. Mouthushi, would you like to come in on voices, for instance?
Okay, so let me just tell you about, we publish about 250 odd books a year. This is outside of the backlist, in Penguin, that is. One of my biggest sellers over the course of the years has been a book called The Legends of Kazakh by O.V. Vijayan, which is, how do I explain that? I mean, every year that book just keeps on selling, reprinting. So I think that when someone says, you know, I want a lot of very modern stories that are talking about today and what's happened yesterday in the news, sure, but then I can't explain the success of Legends of Kazakh because it is not a modern story. So it is the voice. There's something about the authenticity of that voice that has carried through. If it's selling every year, the same people are not buying it. Younger people are then buying it year after year, right? So there's something about that, the voices that Rinita is talking about, that some stories just continue to work. We do so many translations every year, but Legends of Kazakh keeps on working. And then, you know, the two translations that I published last year outside of Heartlamp. One was a book called One Part Woman by Perumal Murugan. Also, amazing story. Would I call it a very modern story? Perhaps not. So I think that when Rinita is talking about voices, she's really talking about a narrative that transcends the current context. We all love to read stories about the current context in English fiction or regular or your regional languages. Of course, all fiction is based on context, but some stories and some narratives just continue through time, and it has nothing to do with when it was based. So that is something that I have realized in the course of my work, is that I don't look for something that's based on a current affair, you know, necessarily when I'm looking for a great novel. I'm just looking for someone who can bring any story with some sort of authenticity. The thing that I do want to talk about with Rinita and with all of you is, you know, when we work on translations, there's something about managing authors' expectations. And the translator's expectations. And I think that needs to be talked about when, I mean, of course, we are talking about South stories today, so let's keep it to the South, but this applies to all over, really, where there is something to be said about how to work with the author, the translator, and the editor when you are working on a translation. When you're working on a regular fiction or non-fiction, you are dealing with an individual who has written a story. Either you like the story or you don't like the story. If you like the story, you agree to publish it in English, and then you rely on the agent or whatever. The regular fiction has its own journey. But when you are working on a translation, you have this added layer of responsibility on you as an editor you can't make a mistake in the translation, but you as an editor are unable to vet the translation. Unless it's from a language that is my mother tongue, I am unable to vet it. I don't know what Banu has written in the original Kannada. I can only rely on the authenticity of Deepa's translation of it. So there's something to be said about that, managing that relationship from the point of, and everybody has to manage that relationship equally. In equal parts, we are responsible. So I am responsible for bringing some sort of honesty to the table to tell my author that this is what I can do for you and this I need you to do for me. Similarly with my translator, and I was talking to Deepa the other day and I said, you have to hustle for the book because you are the only person who knows both the formats in which the book appears. So you can talk about it in a way that I never can. And I want you to talk about those things in every possible forum that you get. And I want Banu to talk about, her journey as an author, because that is what she brings to the table. So everybody brings something else to the table, and we all need to share our responsibility in that. And that, I think, that is a collective thing. I don't know what you think about that.
Yes, I completely agree. I think that is also one of the ways by which the authenticity of the text that we talk about so much gets kind of, you kind of hold on to it, I suppose. But at the same time, I mean, to kind of go back a couple of steps and addressing the bit about expectations between the author, translator, and the editor, I think that starts, I would say, with a huge amount of respect that the work you're dealing with. I think that is very, very essential, irrespective of whether it is a first-time translator or someone who's done like 5 books in a row. I think it is very, very essential to respect and also trust that translator, while at the same time not forgetting that there is a responsibility, like Mouthushi very correctly says, from your side as an editor. But I think what is also challenging is not to overdo that editing, because with translations, that's always, a danger, I would say. Because, you're sort of reading it as a text in English, and you're trying to see what works and what doesn't work. Sometimes, I was saying this to someone a couple of days ago, what's clunky for X may not be clunky for Y. And for me as an editor, I think that I let that clunky stay, because that's also introducing readers to something new that might not ideally work in the text that you're in the language that you're reading, but it's also introducing you to something that you might not be aware of, and it's sort of making you familiar with that, or sort of introducing you to it. And I think accepting that is also, I think, a very tough responsibility for an editor, because you're always sort of walking that fine line between what it is that you are going to comment on and what it is that you're going to let go. And letting go is a very difficult task for an editor. And I think that is a crucial quality for any editor who's working on translations. And I say that also from experience as a translator. I translate from Bangla to English. Sometimes these two personalities are in conflict when I'm translating, because I'm constantly wondering, okay, should I just sort of let this awkwardness be, or should I correct it? Many of our favorite word is correction. I detest it from the bottom of my feet, but yeah. So yes, I think it is a very, very interesting and a very collaborative experience working with translators and authors. Where to let go and where to hold on to, and where to kind of stick your foot in and say that, no, would you consider looking at this one more time? What is it that you let them retain? Also listen to them. I think that listening is a very important part of that journey as an editor, especially when you're working on translations. And that is how I think the experiences that are brought to us from no matter where, whether it's from the south or whether it is from the north or whether it's from any part of the world, comes to you in a voice that's unique. Mouthushi?
No, I agree. Yeah, I mean, as an editor, we are inclined to edit. So I think we need to curb that tendency of ours all the time, particularly in translations, because we are navigating an area that is the third text. So we need to be very careful about that. Um, I wanted, I mean, we can talk about some of our next lot of translations and what we are doing, and particularly from the point of view of Southern languages, if you have anything that you're interested in looking at.
I think one, like I said in the very beginning, it's a very vast canvas. I think I will be limiting myself or limiting translators or, limiting the submissions if I were to say that there is a particular genre or kind of writing that I'm interested in. I think what I'm interested in is good stories. At the end of the day, that is what remains. I think that, you know, what endures in people's memory, what is that one story that you've read probably in your own language or in a language that you're comfortable reading in, that you really want to translate and you really want readers to sort of pick up and not want to put down, or put down and never forget. I think I think good stories also sort of begin with that conviction from the translator's end. So currently, for instance, I'm working on a financial thriller from one of the southern languages. I'm working also on a very unusual story of this boy trying to come to terms with dilemmas of caste around him, set in a very different time, set in a very different context. There are various stories that are just waiting to be told out there. And like I said, I'm very interested in graphic fiction, for instance, like The Pig Flip. Many of you might have read it, Joshi Benedict's Pig Flip. I'm waiting for the stories that you want me to read. Let's just put it that way. I would not really want to say something like this is what I'm seeking in particular, because that is not something that will do justice to the stories that are waiting to be told. But probably Mouthushi will be able to be more specific.
No. I can start with what I am doing right now. I've just published a translation from the Malayalam by the author Benjamin. And he wrote a novel, again, many years ago. He wrote a Malayalam novel, which is now being translated. And what I liked about that story was Benjamin trying to grapple with the protagonist's journey. The protagonist is a strong, independent woman. I love those stories where the protagonist is a strong, independent woman. I am drawn to those stories. We all are drawn to those stories. There's this very strong feminist statement in that novel. That is what resonated with me. It's a nurse who went from Kerala during the time of the First World War as a medical health professional. Aside from the fact that it's a strong, independent woman story, it is a story of a regional history, really, a history of a community. And in a sense, it's a sort of a historical fiction. And I love that about it. And that's why I was very excited to publish it. And we've just published it. The original was published by DC. We've done it in English. The other book that I'm publishing is also from the Malayalam. There's no coincidence there. I don't know why that has happened. It has happened as it has happened. That is a retelling of the Old Testament stories. Deeply dystopian, dramatic, uncomfortable retelling of the Bible, of the Old Testament of the Bible. And obviously with resonance today. It talks about living in a dystopian world where there are people who are subjugated, marginalized, particularly women and children. The state is the greatest industry in the state is an opium industry, which is drugging the people in the city, in that old city. Anyway, the point is, it's metaphorical, obviously, and it really got to me. Again, it's a biblical retelling, and nobody can point a finger to me and say, well, this is not a modern story about, dating on social media apps or whatever. It has nothing to do with that. But the story said something to me. It is deeply uncomfortable to read, but that's what I like about it. And I hope you all read it and are also uncomfortable about it. But yeah, so these are the two books that I'm doing right now. As far as wish list goes, like Rinita said, I don't have a wish list. These were two stories very different from each other. Perhaps if I read into it, I am attracted to female protagonists in their stories. Maybe in some way I am, because I seem to be going back to them. But yeah, if the story has some resonance to me somewhere, then it works. And I think the fact that publishers are publishing translations is, it should be a message to authors to say that, different editors have different perspectives, right? What I like may not be what some other editor likes. So, go ahead, and if somebody says, I don't really like the story, don't let that stop you from going to another editor, because it may appeal to another, because fiction is so subjective. What I like, Rinita may not like, and you may not like, or, somebody's...
And sometimes we ourselves, like you very rightly put it, it's very difficult to put your finger on the reason why we are liking something. And I think that is also a great place to start, that, there is something inexplicably good about a text that you read, no matter how uncomfortable it might make you. Discomfort is great. I'm all for it. But I think that's a great place to start, that you just cannot put your finger on why you love it so much. It's something that's really mind-blowing. It's something that sort of makes you sit up and say, hey, listen, you know what? I want to read more. So you ask the translator, would you be able to send me some more? And with fiction, I think it's always great to be able to read the full manuscript, because you really want to see how the story has been dealt with. Because unlike an original manuscript, this is like a translation. So you really want to see how the translator has dealt with that story and whether it works right its way to the end. So yeah, I mean, not being able to explain is, I think, a great quality. Not a great quality for editors who have to sell that story, but I think to begin with, I think it's a wonderful emotion to have for anything that you're reading, that you just cannot explain how good that is. And also to add to at least like my wish list, I think the one thing that I have been truly, truly waiting for a very long time, and something that just came to me, I think it had kind of vanished out of my mind because I haven't been getting it for a very long time, is humor. I think we've got so little in that genre, wouldn't you agree? I mean, there are very few stories that deal with this particular genre in a very effective way. And I mean, not overdoing it, but just getting that tone right, where you sort of chuckle and you can't just wipe the smile off your face. So that is something that I would really, really look forward to, because I think we have a lot to offer from, irrespective of, again, I mean, I'm going beyond the South, even though I'm here to speak about that. But yeah, from regional literatures, I think there's a great deal of humor that we can actually find in our texts, which I would love to see in translation.
Also sci-fi.
Yes.
I know nothing of sci-fi in languages in southern India. I'm guessing there is stuff there, but I only ever get submissions of sci-fi translations from Bangla.
Yes, I was just about to say
it's
that.
almost like
Yes.
there has only ever been sci-fi written in Bangla and no other languages. So I don't know why that is. I don't know, is there no sci-fi here? I'm sure there is. So I always look forward to that. I look forward to horror also.
Oh, yes.
Horror.
Absolutely.
Again, I get horror submissions from Gujarati. I've never got a horror submission from any language down south. I've got from Gujarati, I've got from Bangla, I've got from Urdu. Urdu, again, is a language where perhaps in the short story format, horror stories worked. And I don't know.
Fantastic horror movies down from South. I mean,
Yes, exactly. But I don't
on
know
screen,
if there
I mean,
isn't,
it's like really great. I mean, you sort of don't want to see them at night. But yes, it would be wonderful to sort of find them in books, especially in translation. That would be a great genre to explore, apart from humor and horror, the two H's. Huh?
Yeah, you want to open up for Q&A, right? Yes, please.
See, I particularly came to this session because I wanted to throw the same topic back at you with an attitude, saying that what the hell are you seeking for, yaar? Because we feel that us and them very strongly maintained, the north and the south, the southern languages, the regional languages. And there's nobody there to talk about this as an Indian language, number one. Number two, we don't know. This is a big joke, and this is a big discussion that happens amongst all the 4 South Indian languages, that we don't know what you want. Because the best of the books, when we submit or when we initiate talks, you don't want them. We don't know what you want. And every time there is a fantastic book in any of these 4 languages, you don't pick them up. We don't know what you want. And it could be from any genre. Okay? And when you spoke now also, I could still feel that us and them. You have that very strong feeling of us and them. Like, you are north and we are south and we are looking at this and this is not there, this is not there, this is what, if perhaps this could be there, this could be. No, that is a very strong thing which we have been seeing for quite some time actually. In fact, today the minute I saw this title, I said, no, I must go there and ask them, what are you seeking? Because when we present the best of Kannada literature, you don't want to consider that. And you will have a lot of questions which may be very true for you. But those questions, they can be, if at all you take the trouble to look at it as on. In fact, I was always thinking that why can't they have a Tamil editor or a Kannada editor or a Malayalam editor and Telugu editor to look and pick the best from these 4 languages. Why should, if a Bengali is there or a Gujarati or somebody is there, and they always have this us and them, which you can't take over, take it away from you. In fact, even whatever you said just now, I still felt the same fragrance coming from you saying that, oh, we and you, So, in fact, I'm really curious to know, it's okay if you don't publish us, but I'm really curious to know why this attitude. That is what is the basis of this north and south divide. So, in fact, why should Bengali or anybody from there decide what is to be published from these 4 languages? So if you have a Tamil editor, the Tamil editor will know what will represent the Tamil culture and what will represent the Tamil literature, and what the others who are reading those books in English may pick up. First of all, we have to educate you about these 4 languages and what is happening there and the current situation and the socio-political scenario that is prevailing here. First, we have to educate you on that and then tell you about the book and then convince you to pick it up for translation. This, and I'm not saying, talking this through my hat, or I'm not saying it just flippantly. It is most difficult thing to reach out to you. We just cannot reach out to you. In fact, it is, if 100 people try, 1 person may be able to reach out to you. This is the current scenario. See, you picked up 1 heart lamp, but you have rejected 99 others who not just rejected is a strong word. The 99 others are not able to reach you, not even able to have a talk with you. That is the current scenario when it comes to South Indian language writings getting translated to English. And that is why, in fact, we were just talking that why are we looking at the North Indian publishers? Why can't we do it ourselves? This is a very serious issue that is bothering all the South Indian writers, because you shouldn't even say regional languages. We are not regional language. You know, there is no regional language. All of us are national languages. So any language that is, if there is a brilliant book in Kannada, why should we try to convince you and, you know, make you say, okay, I will take it up if it is this, 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 if it is this, 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 you know, the conditions that are put. Then I will lose my heart halfway thinking that, what is it? How can I please you? Again, you said it is personal. One editor may like it, one editor may not like it. And then we say, this is the best book and we want other people to read it. But the editor is the one that is putting a door. How do we cross this? In fact, the more I feel there is an integration between the North and South, this cannot happen. You cannot just say that, see, you spoke about Heartland, no? And because we have our own reasons for saying that why you picked it up. The translation, whatever, the stories and everything. And for one Heartland, there are 99 other books that deserve to be translated, but you are not willing to look at them.
Is your question about access to Delhi editors, or is your question about what an editor who does translations wants out of
The second question, I would put it the other way. What an editor wants is very strongly biased. I'm using a very strong word, bias, by who the editor is. If there was a Tamilian editor or a Kannadiga editor or a Telugu editor or a Malayalam editor sitting there, they would look at it with a different angle, perspective.
I'm
That
sure.
is, and that is, see, if somebody, see, the Kannada literature took lot from Bengali. Okay, the new novella came because of Bengal. Sharat Chandra and Bankim Chandra were translated. Every single thing was translated in the previous 100 years ago, you know. With the novella became very strong because of Bengali. And there we didn't have problem at that time. But today, there is this translation itself has become a political issue. See, I cannot reach out to your publication or your publication unless there are conditions laid down. That is a real problem, actually. And I'm very sorry I'm taking it in a very combative attitude, manner. I may be very rude also. I may sound very rude also. But now I have reached a stage where I said, I don't care, yaar. If you don't pick up, it's okay. That is the attitude most of us have reached. And still there are some people who want to reach out to you and want to be translated and published by you. It's okay. If you don't pick up, it's okay. That is the attitude we have reached now. Because it is so difficult to reach you.
What are the conditions to reach us?
You tell me.
I don't know.
Yeah, even I also don't know. I don't know what you seek. See, with the minute you said the South Indian languages, what the English language is seeking. What is the title? So what are you seeking? Can you please tell us what you seek? If you give us a prescription, we will give you books that fit into the prescription. Tell us what you want. We will give you that.
Ma'am, I think I'm just curious to understand what those conditions that you are talking about are, because usually to submit anything to publishers without an agent, if it's an unsolicited submission, there is a way to I think I can speak for every publisher. There is a submissions guideline and also a submissions email address through which you need to reach out to us. Yes, and considering the amount of submissions that I think each publisher gets, I will say this, that yes, there might be some submissions that are not being we are not even reaching that probably. But I do not think, and I think Mouthushi will agree with me when I say that there is no discrimination involved in whose manuscript we are picking to read and whose manuscript we are not picking to read. I think I've already said this thing twice, although the topic of this particular session is South stories, and I think I've said it twice, that what I want as an editor who works on translations, and when I'm talking about stories, it goes beyond just the South. I think I've said that twice already. I can say this with complete conviction, and I'm here representing my publisher at this point. And with due respect to your concerns, I'm sure you've had a very different and difficult experience as a translator who wants to submit to us or probably to other publishers. But there's honestly no discrimination involved in what we choose to read, especially no discrimination based on where that submission is coming from. Secondly, I can also say this with complete conviction that it doesn't really matter where an editor comes from. Our evaluations, whether we are doing those evaluations or our publishers are doing those evaluations, are not dependent upon whether we are Bengalis or Tamilians or, I think this is the first that I'm being asked this question, so I'm a little baffled as to how to address it, because it really, really, please don't be, because there is no reason to be. Scared to tell us what? Oh, okay. No, I have not heard something like this, that where the editors come from will determine what we are reading. I think that is not what I have experienced as an editor for quite a few years in publishing, and I think Mouthushi will second that. I don't think what we pick up to read, to evaluate, to select or not to select has anything to do with where we come from. I may be a Bengali, she may be a Marwari, somebody else may be, a Malayali. But I don't think that our selections are based on where we come from. And if it is something that you have faced, I apologize. But this is something that I've not heard so far, which is what I'm saying. This is not the experience that I'm privy to. I am not disregarding your experience in any way. But all I can say is that as editors, we want to bring good stories for people to read in translation. And if you have had such negative experiences in the past or until now, I'm sure Mouthushi and I or any other editor would be happy to address it and probably give you a different experience should we decide to go with what the translation has been submitted to us. But I can assure you that our selection process has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with where editors come from or where the translation is coming from, to be very honest. Because, I think, and that can be said with a lot of confidence, given the kind of works that we have been publishing from the South, from Malayalam, from Kannada, from Tamil, from Telugu, absolutely. Volga's book is a Telugu original and it's been translated into English. Heartlam is from Kannada. We've had Jayashree Kalathil translating so many Malayalam books. We've got J. Devika. We've been publishing their translations. I worked on Assassin, which was K.R. Mira's book, which was translated from the Malayalam by J. Devika. So and that is not to say that we're not publishing other languages, because the idea is that India is such a diverse country and there's some brilliant, fantastic, superlative stories to be told from every particular region in this country. That is what we are looking for.
Okay.
Mouthushi, if you would like to add.
We have one more question.
Thank you. So I wanted to just ask you regarding, like, when you translate from regional languages, be it any language, Malayalam or Telugu, how do you tackle with those regional terms or regional idioms, or for that matter, like that might be specific to that place or specific to some area, which others might not know the meaning, or like there might not be a replacement or an English word. So how do you tackle such kind of like linguistic barriers when it comes to such things?
So there are two schools of thought here. The first school of thought is the intended reader of that text is going to read it in English. So the first school of thought is the book should read as an English book, right? As an English text, which means that you will then sort of transliterate and change words and try to keep the localness of it as little as possible. Little to essential bits. and make it read as an English text, as an English novel. The second school of thought is retain the original flavor as much as you can, which was Deepa's school of thought. Deepa Bhasde came from that school of thought, where she said, and she has said it across forums, so I can say it, I suppose, is that she says, well, you know, the European is not changing his translation to make it easier for me to read him. So why should I make my Kannada easier for the European to understand me? So these are two schools of thought. You can choose which translator you want to be. You know, as an editor, I don't choose for you. My job as an editor is to ensure that the story flows seamlessly. If there's something that is a local term or an idiom that enhances the text, you may need to find out. Like in Heartland, Seragu was a word I was not familiar with at all. And this is, she wanted to retain it. It's a local Dakhini word. And she wanted to retain it. And she said, well, I understand that you don't understand it, Kannada word. And she retained it. And I said, yes. So that's a school of thought. There are other translators who choose to transliterate because they feel perhaps that retaining it in the exact original, when she translates into English, will change the meaning entirely. So then she says, well, I don't want to do that, but I don't want to retain the original because perhaps it's a longer idiom and it doesn't work in English. Then I will transliterate it. So it'll be something else in the English, reflecting the essence of the original, but in terms of words, it's a different combination of words than literal translation. You choose which translator you want to be. I think as editors, we are open to both kinds of, because we just want the story to read seamlessly, I want to enjoy reading that book as I enjoy reading anything. I want it to be an enjoyable experience. And you choose which school of thought you want to be.
Mom, we're running out of time. We have next session.
I'll just very quickly address ma'am's concern and also to answer your question, just add to what Mouthushi said. Sometimes I think it is also the story that you're translating that dictates what you want to do with those terms. It's not, sometimes, for instance, on the banks of the Pampa, the first draft of the translation had certain words translated into English, such as nagarikata, anagarikata, gyanam. When Purnima told me that, Volga and I would like to retain these words, when we were in the editorial process, I said, go ahead, but let's see how it sort of figures in the text, because it's a short novel. But we also need to ensure that it doesn't sort of interfere with the telling, because it's also a very different tonality, right? It offers a very different tonality to the text. The second second hindrance was, how do you sort of explain the meaning of the term without being explanatory? Because we don't want footnotes in a book such as this, right? I mean, I do not like footnotes anyway. But then there are certain books that require footnotes and we sort of go with it. However, so one of the ways by which you can do it is self-gloss it. Sort of interweave the explanation into the context in some way, or just let the context determine how that word is going to be interpreted by the reader. So in that case, you retain the original, but you don't have to necessarily explain what it is, either in a footnote or in a translator's note or an end note. So sometimes your stories will determine what word you retain in the original and what you don't. So it was not like a nagarikata or a gyanam and gyanam do not have English, almost equivalence, but they would not have the same historical background that probably an gyanam would. And this is something that actually in the interview at the end of the book, Volga talks about, that it's not like we do not have equivalence to offer in English. We could have easily translated it into wisdom, probably, but Gyanam doesn't necessarily mean wisdom. The context will determine what.
Same thing with Yadaya, Hanate and Heartland.
Right.
Actually, in Heartland, she has used "I'll come." I'll come is bad English because when she says, in Kannada we say Bartini. And it is not retaining the original word, but giving an English translation which makes no sense. When she's taking leave, okay, I'll take leave is the English idiom. In Kannada, we say Bartini. So, in the heartland,
What would Bhartani translate to directly?
I'll take leave. And in Heartlamp, it is written as I'll come. I'll come is the literal translation of Bartini. And in that, when an English reader reads it, he or she will wonder, why is this person saying I will come and she's taking leave?
In Kannada, we never say I'm leaving. If I'm leaving, I'll say I'll Bartini. Bartini means I'll come back. So it's like, see you soon, bye, see you soon, like that. So it's translated as I will come. And it doesn't sound good in English. And also, Yadeya Hanate has a very deep meaning in it. Whereas Heartlamp,
You see, how a translator chooses to translate the text depends on where that translator is coming from, their reading, their body of knowledge, their association with their language, their experiences as writers and translators. If you translate Heartlamp, you will translate it differently, right? Somebody else will I've seen two different translations of Kuvempu. I've published Kuvempu. And I've seen two different translations of the same book. Both are excellent, right? Each translator translates differently. And that is the beauty of translation, is that you can retranslate text in your own way. If you feel that there's something else that can be done to the original, then you can do it. And it's great that you are thinking that way, because I hope that it allows you to go back to your own literature and say, this translation was jarring to me. I want to see how else one can do it. And have those conversations, retranslate texts.
This is also what I wanted to add. I think that, your perspective on the translation is also determined by the fact that you know the original. I think sometimes translation choices are very difficult to make. What we are reading is like an end product, but we don't know what sort of debates and dilemmas the translator has gone through to basically decide between I'll come and I'll take your leave. And I get what you're saying. In Bangla also we say Ami Ashchi when I'm saying I'm going, which means that I'm leaving, but I'm actually saying I'm coming back. That's right. Yeah, no, but this is a fascinating discussion. And these are, I think, debates and dilemmas and conundrums that will always be there with translated texts. I don't think there is an end word to what is correct, like I said.
We can have this conversation later about how else it can be translated. The original title was very different for it because, it's a collection of stories. It's not a novel. So we wanted to pick one of the titles of the short stories. And Deepa, this is actually a question for Deepa, but anyway, the thing is that Deepa had one pen translates. So the story behind it is that when she applied for the grant for Pen Translates, she won it for this story which she had called Heartlamp. So one of the reasons that we chose the collection to be called Heartlamp is because when the UK was going to publish the book, when the UK publisher came on board, it was important for them to have recall value for what that story was. So because Heartlamp had won Pen Translates, which was an American translation fellowship and award that she had won, it seemed prudent for us to use the US title so that it had better recall value for the UK publisher. Otherwise, if it was just an Indian edition, then we could have tried other names also. Anyway, we have run out of time. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you for opening doors to global storytelling while staying rooted in our cultures. And to our valued partners, thank you for making conversations like these possible. Thank you so much.